Hey guys, welcome back to the SewGnar Sewing Patterns YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how I took the Necessary Clutch Wallet by Emmaline bags and made it out of all cork. As you can see, every single thing is all cork, and I made some pattern modifications here, like adding the flap to the main body panel and then amending the size of the interior pieces. So tune in and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can see any new videos that I have coming out, and feel free to join my Sewing Patterns group on Facebook, and I will link that below. Thanks so much. Enjoy. So before we get started with the actual construction of the wallet, I wanted to show you how I amended my pattern pieces. So what I've done is I printed out the main pattern pieces, the flap and the body, and I've just taped them together with a 1/4 inch overlap here. And then I like to offer an angled flap option as well, so I have just taped that to the other side. Depending on which flap you're going to use, you can just flip it. Flip whichever flap up, and then you can lay it down. So with that, what I do is I lay my entire main body panel piece onto my cork and just cut it out all as one piece that you can see here. And then I glue just down the center, just down a center line. I glue it wrong sides together to the other side cork option, and so then I can cut them out and they're all the same. So to get started with the actual construction, well, let me show you what we have first. Okay, so we have 2 outer body panel pieces. Well, technically it's the outside and the inside, so it's the lining and the outside. And then I have my amended zipper pocket panel, which I cut at 7.5 by 7.5. And then I have my zipper ends, which are 1.5 by 1 inch. And then I have my zipper for that section. And then I have also amended the amount of cork that you use to make the card slots as to not waste any. So mine are 15 inches long by 8 inches wide, and you need 2 of those. And then you'll need the backing piece for the card slot panels, and I cut that at 8 by 8. All right, so that's all the pieces that you need. And so what I'm gonna do first to get started is I'm gonna glue my tag down. And I have cut out an area here where my tag goes. So I'm just gonna line up all my edges here. There we go. And then I'm going to glue my tag. Can get the glue to come out. If you prefer, you can also use double-sided tape, or if you don't have tags, just skip this all together. And so the placement of my tag, I'll show you on a completed wallet. It's like this. So this is the back of the wallet, and I have it centered just below the flap here. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry. While that's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and prep my zipper pocket panels, zipper pocket coin pouch panel pieces, whatever you wanna call it. Polly picked a peck of pickled peppers. I'm gonna burn one short edge of my zipper ends here. Apply glue on that burnt edge. And then what I'm going to do is create a box that with the zipper ends included is 8 inches. And another sneaky way you could do it is just lay one of your zipper, or 7.5 inches rather. Lay one of your zipper panels down, and then you want both outside edges of the zip tab ends to meet up with the outside edge of your, what will be your zipper panel pouch. So if you can see here, the zipper will be as wide as the entire pouch here. So it is 7.5 from one end of the tab to the other here, 7.5 inches. So I'm gonna move over to the machine and stitch down my tag and then also my zipper here, my zipper ends, and then we will finish prepping the outside body piece and the zipper section. So I don't want the thread from me stitching my tag down to show on the inside piece, so I'm gonna peel these pieces back apart a little bit and peel some of this glue. And then I'm gonna just stitch the tag on to what will be the outside piece. Trim those. All right, and then I'm going to switch my thread color back over to purple, and I'm gonna stitch a 1/4 inch down these sides. You want to be sure to backstitch really well over the zipper because once we trim the zipper under here, we want to make sure that if the wallet is used roughly, that the zipper won't pop out from under these seams. So just make sure to backstitch a few times over the actual zipper teeth. And you're going to trim your threads here. And I'm going to hop back over to my sewing desk to show you some more prep work. Alrighty, so in order to finish prepping our zipper pocket panel piece area section, whatever, we're gonna trim our zipper back. I usually leave about a 1/2 inch overlap on the bottom. I'm gonna burn one of these edges here. And then the same edge that I burnt, I'm going to put glue. You want to make sure that your zipper tape is nice and straight. And then we're going to glue this first piece down. We're going to do the same with the other side. All right, so while that glue is drying, I'm going to install the magnetic snap set into the main body. So on my pattern piece, I have it marked where the flap piece goes and where this goes. As you can see, I've got lots and lots of notes written all over mine. This is trial and error here, trying and testing everything out. So this unicorn cork is going to be the outside, so I'm going to do the female section of my snap. I'm going to install that out here. So you want to be sure to flip your lining side back out of the way so that it just goes through the outside piece. And then because the cork is going to be back on top of it, I don't bother putting interfacing down here. I am very careful to glue well around that section to make sure that the cork holds the backing on. So after you get the female section installed, you can glue the rest of your cork down on this side. Okay, so since the eggplant is the liner, I'm going to install the male portion on this side. And then be sure to flip the outside piece out of the way before you install it. It's amazing how quickly I lose things, especially the backings to magnetic snaps. Weird. I'm sure I'll find it in like a week. I like the flap to have a little bit more stability, so I do interface this section. And I like to interface almost the entire flap and down a little bit. Let's see if I can flip it towards you. I do the entire flap all the way down, and this is how I do it. It's a very technical way, not really. I just feel where it is, mark it, and then I cut it. And this is just preference for me. I like to have just a little bit more body in the flap. There we go. It doesn't line up perfectly, but it's not a huge deal. So I'm just going to glue this down, and then I'm going to glue the outer and the liner cork together. So I'm going to go ahead and hit all this with glue while it's pulled up. Lay this down. Oh, I'm going to put some glue on the actual interfacing. All right, so we're gonna let that dry for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to top stitch around the entire outside of these two panels. All right, so I'm gonna top stitch around this entire rectangle here to secure the coin pouch panels to the zipper. Already over here, I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. I'm going to grab my glue, and I'm going to glue down the sides, and about halfway I'm going to glue all this. Oop. And later this will get stitched to create the final coin slot, but for now the glue will just hold it in place. So once I've got, ouch, glue on there, just gonna roll this up. And what I'm gonna do is stitch around the entire square. Trim all your threads here. And then when I get back over to my cutting mat, what I'll do is I'm just gonna straighten out this edge if it has any overlap. Just a little bit. So I'll cut that to be a straight edge. But for now that's done. And now what I'm gonna do is top stitch all the way around the perimeter of this outer body panel to stitch it to the lining. I just start at a random point along one of the curves with the outside up, and yeah, just stitch just over 1/8 of an inch or about 1/8 of an inch seam. If you sew slowly, you'll be able to make this turn no problem. If you're going too fast, you're gonna have to stop your machine and fix your corner, your edge. Sorry, I had some threads all tangled up here. So you want to be a little careful because your snap is down here, so it can get stuck to your, or it'll be attracted to your throat plate, so just keep that in mind when you're stitching. If you wanted to, you could easily do a quilting pattern on the whole, on this whole section. It would be kind of cool. I've always wanted to try doing like 1-inch cross pattern. I've just never done it because normally when I make these, they're always for orders and it's not just to make them. All right, so there we go. That is all finished as well. So I'm gonna move back over to my cutting table and I'm gonna do the same thing to this that I'm gonna do to my zip pouch, which is I'm going to just tighten up all of my edges and make sure that they are all flush and that they are even all the way around. Alright, so now it's easier to glue edges now, so I'm going to go ahead and burn my raw edges. then with this Emmeline Fabric Fusion glue, I'm going to go ahead and put glue on all of my raw edges and get this stuff out of the way. All right. So those two pieces are done now. And now we're going to work on our credit card slots. So a marking pen and your ruler. What I like to do is just line up my two card slot panels wrong side up, put them right next to each other, and then I mark them at the same time. So the first marking you're going to make is at 2.5. And then you're going to slide up to 1.75 from that 2.5. Make another line. And then you're going to go 2.25 from the 1.75 line. And then we're going to alternate back and forth. Now we're going back to the 1.75. And then the next line at 2.25. And then one final 1.75 line. And then I'm gonna, at the very beginning, this 2.5 chunk, I'm gonna mark it with an X so that I know that that is the top of the card slots. So I'm gonna take one, I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna fold at that first line. Crease it, and then I put 2 clips up towards the top of the fold here. And so now you're gonna, now you want to fold on that next line that we made. Crease it really well, and then move your clips to hold the new fold. And then you're just gonna keep going on every fold, front to back, front to back. So there is one card slot panel. I'm gonna do the same on this one. I like to put my fingernails on the line and then use that as my guide. And then this one you can see, but when you're folding the other side, you can't see what you're doing. All right, so we've got both of them. I'm gonna move back over to the machine and I'm gonna top stitch each of these folds here. All right, so the first thing that I do is I unclip the very top and just move it to where it's only holding onto the folds. Do that on both sides. And what that will do will allow this top section to fold down so that you can top stitch easier. Then I top stitch using a very thin 1/8 inch. And then I do the same thing, just move it down, release this top card slot, and then top stitch the second one. And then finally, this third one. Tangled up in thread again. So once you have all 3 top stitched, it'll look like this. And the short bottom edge, you're just gonna gather your pleats again. And fold it back up, just to hold it in place. And we'll do the same with our second panel. All right, so now what we're gonna do is with both of our panels, you wanna take the bottom sections and lay them right sides together and clip in place. And then we're gonna stitch these together. I'm gonna do a 1/4 inch seam here. And then this next part, what we're gonna do is we wanna finger press these seams open. I'm going to flip it back over, and I'm going to stitch those seams down using an 1/8 inch on either side. It makes it a lot easier whenever you're riveting all the pieces together, whenever you're pushing this and combining it with the zipper area and the outer body area. It just makes it easier for the rivets to sit nicer. And this doesn't have to look pretty because it will be covered, but again, it just helps with the final overall. So you can see how I stitched it down. Okay, so now we're gonna fold them all back how they'll lay once completed. I'm gonna clip both sides. This part is fairly important because we're gonna mark our center line here. So you wanna make sure that your card slots are exactly how they need to be, because we're going to stitch them in place here in a second. When I'm on this step, I mostly just worry about how my card sections here, make sure that they're even and laid out nicely. I don't worry about how wide this top section is, because we're going to trim that down in the next step. So what you're going to do is you're going to measure 4 inches over and then make a line. And then now we're going to stitch that line starting at the top card pocket. Be sure to back stitch really well and go nice and slow here because you're building up to a lot of layers of cord. Sounded like my machine just skipped. Yep, it just skipped just a few. My machine gets testy when I do this many layers. Alright, so I skipped stitches there, so I'm gonna cut that section out and redo that. I like to trim all my threads at once. I feel like, I don't know, stopping every single time, whatever. That is a preference. All right, so now we've got our card slots stitched down the center here, and what we need to do is, ooh, I messed up back there. What we need to do is glue the backing down. So we have our backing piece, the 8x8, and what we're gonna do is just glue it down. Center it as well as you can. I mean, I just eyeball this section, or this step. You can see that we're gonna have some overlap of these top card slots here, and that's fine. So I'm just gonna put a bunch of glue right here. Hopefully this doesn't mess me up later. So I like to apply this glue very, very generously. And I usually do 1/2 at a time. All right, so I'm going to do this side. And so what I'm going to do before I top stitch this is I'm going to jump back over to my cutting table real quick, and I'm going to trim this down. I will be right back. All right, so now what I'm going to do, that I've got the backing all trimmed up, I'm just going to top stitch around all 4 sides here. And then again, you're going to want to be careful and go nice and slow. I like to, as you can see, I'm like picking this entire panel up because I'm trying to ensure that the card slots meet up with the edge here as much as possible. Now after this step, we will trim it all, but I just like to, it's just one of those things that I do. And if you watch my videos, you know that whenever I'm going over a join, like these card slots, this card slot to this card slot, I always back stitch. I do a little extra stay stitch here. So that's what I'm doing when you see the piece go forward then back. We are top stitched. And already to go. Alright, move back over to my cutting table and show you what's next. Alright, so next what I'm going to do is just kind of trim up any excess edges that I might have. And these side edges don't really matter because they're going to be encased in the main body panel. But old habits die hard. I just like everything to be as neat as possible. I'm going to tidy up what I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue these top and bottom raw edges where the card slots are. Always quickly burning it first just to remove any little fuzzies or frays. And this you can hit, if you use poly thread, you can hit it with a lighter and it'll burn it down for you. If you have questions about this gluing method, I have an entire video in my Facebook group that addresses the type of glue and then just how I do that. Okay, so now we are ready to do the final assembly. We have the card slot panels, the zipper coin pouch, and then the inner and outer body panel all ready to go. So first what I'm going to do is center the zipper section on top of the card slots. And because this zipper section is 7.5 inches and this is 8, you should have a little bit of overhang of the card slots underneath. And then I glue just down that center just to hold it in place. I like to always have my zipper heads to the left as well. So I'm gonna glue this down. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a 1-inch box, or it's usually, maybe it's about 7/8 to stitch these two together. So, oh yeah, so it's 6/8. I do a 6/8 box, so 6/8 from the middle line, draw a line, or 3/8, sorry about that. The box in its entirety is gonna be 6/8. Which is 3/4 of an inch. Sorry to be confusing. So we've got 3/4 of an inch here, and then I'm gonna come in on this right side a 1/2 inch. And then this other side here, a 1/2 inch. So you can see now I've got a box drawn on mine, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stitch all the way around this box. All right, so I have the box stitched on here now, which attaches my zipper coin pouch divider section area to my card slots. As you can see, burn these threads. So what I'm gonna do are here, so let's see. So you can see that I have about a 1/2 inch section here on both sides. And what I'm going to do is mark the spots where my rivets are gonna go down here. And I have this tool, I don't know if you can see it. I got this from By Pierre. She's not making them anymore, but I'm sure that you can find something online. But this is a rivet template, rivet placement template. It goes from 1 inch single rivet to 1.5 inch double rivet, which I love it. I actually use it quite a bit. And so I'm gonna use my double rivet side. And I'm just gonna make marks where my rivets will be placed in that that 1/2 inch section that we left open on each end. And then I will pop the holes. Then I'm going to use these holes as my guides for marking the main body panel. Now, wrong side up of the main. Oh look, here's that little piece I lost earlier. Knew I'd find it when I didn't need it. So wrong side up, I'm going to lay my zipper section, or this entire section. I'm going to center it evenly from where the bottom of the flap would be. I'm going to evenly center that to this side here. And again, I just eyeball everything. Feel free to measure. Once I figure out where I'm going to put it, I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to use these marking holes and mark. Let's see if I can, yeah. mark where these rivets need to go. Because it's black cork, I'm just going to do one side at a time because it's hard to see black marker and black cork. So I just kind of burrito roll, I guess it's more of a taquito roll my cork side up, pop those holes in, and that was a terrible job lining those up. There we go. All right, and so I'm going to use, these are 9mm rivets, 9x9. I'm going to put the post through the bottom. There we go. And then I will slide this section onto the post. That way my zipper card slot panel section doesn't shift when I'm figuring out where this side goes. So I'm going to mark the holes on this side here. I don't know why I popped them all the way in. And then I'm going to do my taquito roll over here and mark these rivet holes. Or punch them, I guess. The old flipperoo, put the post through. So now we have the 4 posts sticking up here. So you can see them, there's 2. And the other 2 back here. And so I'm going to attach my zipper area, zipper card slot section. Now that we've got those, I'm going to go ahead and press them in place so that they don't shift. And then there we go. Now all 3 sections are attached, and all we have to do is fold up the edges and finish her off. Let's see. So I like to pull the zipper piece back, fold it down towards the bottom, get it out of the way, and I'm going to fold this right edge up. And I want to make sure that this fold is flush with this side of the flap here. And when it's flush, I'm going to pop a hole through for a rivet. I usually pop the rivets about 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch in, and about an inch from the flap. But these, again, I just eyeball everything, but I've made a lot of them, so it's a little bit easier for me. But if you can see, so there's my fold, and if you look down inside, the rivet is through this card slot panel here. Then I'm going to fold the zipper pocket section up towards the opposite end, and then do the same thing. I'm going to fold this right flap up, get it as flush as possible against that right side. And then once it's super flush, I'm gonna pop a hole through it. And again, it's about 1 inch from the top, or from the edge here, and about 3/8 in from the side. Right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and press those in place. So this is what it looks like now. You've got this section loose, but both of these sections are riveted down. Before we do this next section, I'm gonna do the other side. So I'm gonna do the same thing, flip the zipper section down towards one direction, fold this side piece over, make sure that it's flush, make sure that the fold is flush with the flap edge. So I'm gonna flip it. This I do kind of measure because I don't want one rivet to be way over here and one to be way over here. So once I do this first side, I flip it over. I've got my fold all ready to go, and I'll lay it down with the rivet on one of my measurement lines. And then that way I know that this measurement will be in line with this other rivet, if that makes sense. If not, feel free to measure it out. You know, physically, you can use a ruler and measure it, but I'll do it my way. So same thing, just gonna fold this up and over. It can be really daunting to punch holes in a very expensive textile, but riveting this side section is so much easier. I think my machine would never sew through all these layers like the pattern suggests you to. Cotton, no problem, but sewing through all this in cork, there's no way. All right, so now we are almost done. We just have to rivet this section into place. This I just largely do by eye. I try to get these sections to lay evenly. Sometimes it takes some maneuvering, so if you think about it, when you're making your big pattern piece, you can do the marks that the pattern has on it, and then you can mark your cork with it. I always thought that would be a much easier way to do it. I've just never taken the time to go back and add it to my pattern pieces. And I do everything else by eye, so, you know. Then I just clip these in place until I get it to where I want it, and then I do the rivets. Don't be afraid to really manhandle the cork, because a lot of these folds and stuff the cork won't want to do, but you are stronger than the cork. And then when I get it clipped, I always fold it just to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So that's what it's going to look like when it's all done. And so now I just need to rivet these sections. Okay, so this one is a little off, so I'm going to move this one over. So these side ones, I like to do 2 rivets just to make sure that everything stays put. So I do 1 rivet almost 3/4 of an inch down from the top here, and then I do one roughly an inch below that one. So you can see it here. See? It's about 3/4 of an inch here, and then about an inch to there. I'm gonna do the same thing on this other one. You really have to bend and push the cork around on this section. All right, and then I'm gonna do the other side. When you're putting in the second rivet, you want to be sure to push that entire side of this section right here. Make sure to push it all the way into the fold, or else it's pointless to do the second one. We're almost done. So there we go. Now we just got to push or press the rivets in. So again, don't be scared to maneuver this cork around. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get into these sections. There we go. So thank you so much for joining me today while I made the necessary clutch wallet in all cork. A quick recap of the modifications is I made the pattern piece of the outer body panel attached to the flat panel, or flat pattern piece rather, so that it was all seamless in one large piece. I made the card slot pieces smaller, so the final measurement of those was 15 inches tall by 8 inches wide, and you cut 2 of them. And then the piece that goes on the back of the card slot pieces is 8 by 8, which you cut down after you assemble the card slot panels. And then the zipper pocket section is 7.5 by 7.5 with 1.25 by 1 inch zipper tabs. And then I also put rivets on the sides and on the bottom instead of sewing, which those you can pretty much just eyeball. And then I think that's about it. So I will link to Emmeline's original NCW pattern. She also does a mini NCW, which makes it about 6 inches or so. Maybe I'll do one of those next and upload that video. And yeah, other than that, let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, press subscribe, check out my other YouTube videos. Let me know if you want me to make anything else. And until then, happy sewing. Jersey, say bye.